You've been taught to smile, to nod, to keep the peace at any cost. You've been taught that good means agreeable, quiet, pleasant. But what if that goodness is a disguise? Carl Jung once said that when we live just to be liked, we're not being kind. We're hiding. And over time, that mask doesn't just cover your face, it becomes your cage. Because saying yes to everyone else usually means saying no to yourself. You think being liked earns you respect? That going along with everything earns you love? It doesn't. It earns you silence. It earns you invisibility. It teaches the world that you come last, if you matter at all. You're not being cooperative. You're abandoning yourself. And the more you do it, the more you tell the world, my needs don't count. My time is always available. My boundaries are flexible. My silence means consent. But Jung didn't call this people-pleasing. He called it the shadow in disguise, a survival mask we wear to avoid rejection, avoid conflict, avoid being alone. But in protecting yourself, you vanish. And the sad part, people aren't always cruel. They're just responding to what you let happen. If you never show the part of you that's angry, that's tired, that wants space, then eventually you forget that version of you ever existed. One day, you wake up feeling fake, drained, disconnected, and you wonder, why does no one really see me? That's the price of wearing the mask too long. Jung called that mask the persona. It's the version of you shaped by parents, school, religion, society. The version of you designed to be acceptable. You needed it. Still do sometimes. You can't walk through life blurting out every thought or acting on every emotion. That's chaos. But here's where it gets dangerous. When the mask becomes your identity. When you forget who you were before the world told you who to be. Because you're not here to be liked. You're here to be real. You're not here to perform. You're here to live a life that's yours, not one scripted for someone else. You know it, deep down. You're not being honest. You're just performing. You're curating your personality like a social feed, only posting the parts of you that feel safe. You're not expressing your truth. You're managing other people's comfort. You're not connecting. You're walking on eggshells, and your body feels it, exhausted, number burned out. Always overthinking, worried about saying the wrong thing, terrified of disappointing anyone. That's not kindness. That's a cage. That's not being emotionally intelligent. That's emotional imprisonment. And the cruel part? The more you please others, the more they expect it. You teach people how to treat you, and if all you ever say is yes, they'll forget you ever had a no. They're not always cruel, but they've stopped believing your boundaries are real, because you never showed them. And here's the worst part. You're trying so hard to be loved, but they don't even know the real you. They know the version of you that's agreeable, the edited, filtered, soft-spoken character you've rehearsed for years. And now, you're afraid to break that illusion, because the moment you say no, the moment you set a boundary, they'll say you've changed. They'll call you selfish, cold, but they're wrong. You're not changing, you're revealing, and your honesty feels like violence to people who only loved your silence. Carl Jung called this the beginning of individuation, not self-improvement, not self-help. Self-possession. The moment you reclaim your spine, your voice, your no, that actually means something. Because as long as you keep pleasing everyone, you'll keep feeling hollow, like something's missing. like your life doesn't fully belong to you. That's not depression. That's your real self trying to break out. It's screaming through your fake smiles, begging for truth in your polite emails, aching for freedom in your performative friendships. So what happens when you stop? People get uncomfortable. Some get angry. Some leave. Some will guilt trip you, beg you to go back to the old you, the soft, quiet one. Let them. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. Because you're not here to be controlled. You're here to be whole, to speak your truth, to protect your soul, to walk away from people who only loved you when you were easy to manipulate. And Carl Jung? He wouldn't call that selfish. He'd call that an awakening. And what comes next? We go deeper. We explore the psychology behind all of it, why people-pleasing starts in childhood, how your persona, your false self, runs your life, and how to slowly peel it away without destroying your relationships or losing yourself. Because you weren't born like this. You weren't born to be a peacekeeper. You were trained, molded, conditioned, and the worst part? You thought it was love. You thought staying silent made you strong. You thought shrinking yourself made you lovable. You thought ignoring your needs made you noble. You thought burying your emotions made you strong. But all it did was make you disappear, and the version of you that others adore, the one they rely on, praise, even put on a pedestal, it's not really you. It's your persona. Carl Jung described the persona as the mask you wear to survive society's expectations. Not a lie, a survival tool. You wear it to navigate school, family, love, career. It helps you belong. It helps you function. But here's the danger. The moment you start mistaking the mask for your identity, you lose the most important part of being alive, your authenticity. This is exactly where chronic people-pleasing begins. Somewhere in childhood, you learned that honesty led to punishment, that asking for too much meant being too much, that having boundaries meant losing love. So you adapted. You smiled when you wanted to cry. You agreed when your soul screamed no. You shrunk yourself so others could feel comfortable. You began to believe that love had to be earned through perfection, silence, obedience, and slowly the mask became permanent. Now, here's where Jung goes deeper than modern psychology. Today's self-help world tells you to set boundaries, speak up, take self-care days. It sounds good, but it barely scratches the surface. Jung understood something much heavier. People-pleasing isn't just a habit. It's a soul-level fracture. Because the more you betray yourself to be accepted, the more your real identity slips away. And eventually, you ask the questions that haunt. Who am I when I stop performing? What if no one stays when I stop giving? Will anyone love me if I speak my truth? These aren't small worries. These are existential fears. Because your brain learned that approval equals safety. And now, any act of truth feels like danger. But the tragedy is this. Every time you choose comfort over honesty, you vanish a little more. You become someone others rely on, but no one truly knows. And here's the cruelest irony. The people-pleaser gets love, but it always feels fake. Because deep down, they're not loving you. They're loving the agreeable version, the reliable, flexible, quiet version. But what happens when you get tired? When you reach your edge? When you finally say, I can't do this anymore? That's when the love evaporates, and you're left holding the silence, the guilt, the second-guessing. But Jung would say, good, because that's the moment your real life begins. That's the start of individuation, not perfection, not people approval, but wholeness. It's when you start reclaiming the parts of yourself you exiled, your anger, your pride, your selfishness, your right to say no without apologizing. Individuation isn't about becoming better, it's about becoming real. It says, yes, I care about others, but I care about myself too. Yes, I want peace, but not at the cost of my voice. Yes, I want love, but not if I have to disappear to keep it. I love you, but I won't abandon myself to keep you. That's not rebellion. That's what maturity looks like. And if someone can't handle your growth, if they only loved you when you were easy, quiet, soft, let them go. Carl Jung didn't believe the self was born from approval. He believed it emerged from the fire, from conflict, from confrontation, from disappointing people who only valued your compliance. It's not until you risk being real that you finally become whole. Here's the twist people don't see coming. When you stop pleasing others, you don't lose all your relationships. You just lose the ones built on imbalance, the ones that depended on you being small, the ones that only worked when you didn't. And in their place, you make room for people who love you without conditions, people who don't flinch when you say no, people who don't need to shrink you to feel secure. So, how do you know your persona has taken over? Jung warned that the persona becomes dangerous when it turns rigid, when you're always the strong one, always the nice one, always calm, agreeable, composed. Then your mask isn't a tool anymore. It's a prison. You'll know you're trapped when you leave social settings feeling emotionally drained. You overthink every message, every decision. You say yes, not from desire, but from fear. You feel unseen even by those closest to you. These aren't quirks. These are alarms. They signal that your identity is being crushed under the weight of performance. And the more you pretend, the more you disappear, not because you're weak, but because the mask has become so convincing even you can't tell where it ends anymore. But here's the good news. The moment you notice this, you unlock the door. You don't need approval to walk through it. You don't need permission to choose yourself. You just need one thing: courage. The courage to pause before you say yes. The courage to let others feel discomfort without rushing to fix it. The courage to stop chasing approval and start living in truth. Carl Jung never wanted you to become rude, bitter, or indifferent. What he wanted was for you to become undeniably aligned, so much so that no one could guilt you into shrinking again. And now you're on the edge of that change. This next part is about learning how to live in that truth without guilt, how to rebuild your identity outside the nice role, how to become someone others respect, not someone they merely tolerate. And here's the shift happening inside you right now. You can feel it. You're beginning to recognize how much of your life has been performance, how much of your personality was sculpted for others' comfort, how often you said yes when everything in you whispered no. And maybe, just maybe, for the first time, you're asking a question most avoid. Who am I when I stop pleasing? That's not a surface-level question. That's a full-blown identity reset. Because when you stop pleasing, you don't just lose comfort. You shed your former self. But what rises in its place isn't bitterness. It isn't cruelty. It's something far more powerful. It's someone real, someone who can walk into a room without needing to be liked, someone who doesn't owe anyone a watered-down version of their soul. And that's not selfish. That's the beginning of actual peace. Someone who doesn't need approval to feel worthy, someone who can say no without guilt and yes without fear. That is what individuation truly is, not some feel-good spiritual fluff, not moral perfection, but raw, uncomfortable truth finally stepping into the light and choosing to stay there. So, how do you become that person? Let's break it down, step by step. Step 1, recognize the guilt loop. The moment you stop pleasing others, you'll feel it, that tightness in your chest, the pit in your stomach, the silence that suddenly feels loud. You'll start thinking, am I being mean? Am I letting people down? Did I just ruin everything? But here's what Carl Jung would say. That's not guilt. That's withdrawal. You're detoxing from a lifetime of chasing approval. You're finally pulling back all the energy you gave away like currency. Of course it feels heavy, but that heaviness, that's not proof you're doing something wrong. It's proof you're finally doing something real. Let the guilt show up. Don't panic. Don't overanalyze. Just feel it and choose truth anyway. That's how your power returns, when guilt no longer controls the steering wheel. Step 2, redefine your value. If you've been a lifelong people pleaser, this part will hit. You've tied your worth to being useful. Helpful equals valuable. Needed equals safe. Liked equals important. But that's not identity. That's emotional performance. The moment you stop being useful, you feel replaceable. So the work becomes this. Redefine what makes you valuable. It's not your sacrifices, not your yeses, not your silence. It's your truth, your presence, your boundaries, your ability to stay rooted in yourself, even when it disappoints people. Your worth lives not in what you offer others, but in what you refuse to give away against yourself. Step 3, learn to disappoint without apology. This is your next milestone. You can disappoint someone and still be good, still be kind, still be whole. You can say no without writing a 3-paragraph explanation. You can stand firm without softening it to protect their feelings. Every time you dull your boundaries to avoid discomfort, you reinforce the lie that your needs are a problem. They're not. They're sacred. Jung believed the path to wholeness lies in integrating the shadow. The parts of you that feel selfish, angry, bold, defiant. And your ability to be misunderstood without collapsing, that's not a flaw. That's spiritual muscle. You're not here to be decoded by everyone. You're here to be true, especially when it's messy. Step 4, start small. Stay solid. You don't need to announce your new identity. No big speech, no dramatic walkouts. Just start small. Pause before you reply. Don't say sorry when you've done nothing wrong. Don't offer more than you're willing to give. Don't rush to make everyone comfortable. Let it be quiet. Let it be consistent. And soon, people begin to recalibrate. They stop pushing, stop assuming, stop draining, because your new energy trains them. You're not here to please anymore. You're here to be whole. Step 5, embody the new standard. Here's what happens when you stop pleasing. The wrong people fall away. Let them. That's not a loss. That's a revelation. That's proof they loved your silence, not your soul. But something else starts to happen too. You begin to attract differently. People who respect your no. People who match your energy. People who meet you in truth, not performance. But this shift only sticks if you live it. daily, quietly, repeatedly, not when it's easy, but especially when the old patterns whisper, just bend this once. Don't. Hold the line. Breathe. Stay. Because every time you choose not to betray yourself, you build an unshakable self-trust. And that, not external success, not followers, not praise, that quiet inner loyalty is what Jung believed was the beginning of real transformation. Final words. You won't stop people-pleasing because you've gone cold. You'll stop because you've woken up. Jung never wanted you to become harsh or indifferent. He wanted you to become awake, to stop bleeding yourself dry for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage, to stop shrinking for love, to stop folding in on yourself to stay agreeable. He wanted you to become the kind of person who can say no without guilt, yes without fear, and I choose myself without apology. The ones who are most healed aren't the ones who are most liked. They're the ones who are finally, fully free.